Hi, I'm Zack.
And I'm Chad, and this is episode 590 of the Lawyerist Podcast, part of the Legal Talk Network. Today, Zack is going to be talking with Graydon Trusler about productive laziness and how they use AI in their law firm.
I usually like to talk to people about unproductive laziness, but today it's productive laziness, but unproductive laziness, which is what I call the moment after I eat Thanksgiving dinner.
It's a good, nice transition.
Yeah, thank you. This was a good segue today. Or Thanksgiving lunch, or whatever you do. I eat Thanksgiving, meal as long as I can all day, and then how long does eating Thanksgiving turkey and food and whatnot last for you?
7 to 10 days.
That feels right.
7 to 10 days.
That feels right. However long it physically lasts.
There comes a day where you, depending on how much you cook or how many leftovers you come home with from wherever you enjoy the meal, there is a day where you know you're kind of pushing it a little bit. Like, it's day 11. Should I still be eating this turkey?
We used to freeze like turkey soups though. So like it'd be deep into winter before we really actually got done with all of our Thanksgiving related leftovers, I guess. Do you intentionally cook leftovers?
Intentionally cook
like,
leftovers?
Do you intentionally make way too much in order to have the leftovers?
Yes, I think you should do that.
Yeah,
it's like double the size bird that you actually need.
Okay.
Double the mac and cheese, double the stuffing.
Ooh, okay. So what's your, obviously we're talking turkey. So you got a turkey. And then people can debate, and we might, how to cook said turkey. But what's your sides?
Oh, sides.
Yeah,
so
sides.
Is you gotta have the staples, right? So
what are your staples? I mean, like, people have different staples. Yeah.
We must have mashed potatoes, dressing, stuffing, and
whoa.
my wife's homemade mac and cheese.
You just talked about dressing and stuffing like they were the same thing. You were just like, interchangeable, dressing, stuffing, totally interchangeable.
Stuffing.
Okay. So you cook it in the bird.
It should be in the bird.
Okay. And then your wife's mac and cheese.
My wife makes homemade mac and cheese that is the best mac and cheese you'll ever have. And we only get it on Thanksgiving.
Is it like difficult, or is she just like, you know what? I'm going to make it special. It just has to be special.
It's time consuming because she uses like 5 different types of cheese that she like shreds herself.
Okay.
And it's like a whole thing. And there's like breadcrumbs on top. And yeah,
I mean, you have me at cheese, but it sounds pretty good. I'm going to need a picture of that.
Like, she uses cheeses I've never heard of, like Gruyere or something like that. However you say it, Gruyere cheese. Like, I'm like, what is that?
Bluey cheese, you know? Yeah. Insert Gouda joke right now, which my wife will get really irritated with throughout Thanksgiving, is me and all of my Gouda jokes. Okay, so you've got turkey.
I think there is Gouda in the mac and cheese is one of the 5.
I hope so, right? I mean, that's a good melty cheese, right?
Have you ever had Gouda grilled cheese sandwiches?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
There used to be a super fancy, and it may still be there, a super fancy grilled cheese food truck in Nashville called I think it was called the Grilled Cheesery, and they had Gouda grilled cheese sandwiches for, if you had like $40 on you, they would give you a Gouda grilled cheese sandwich.
$40.
I don't know. It just felt expensive.
That sounds like that lobster sandwich you were telling me about at CleoCon.
Yeah, except I'm not allergic to cheese. Yeah, the lobster roll was not as cheap as I expected it to be, you know, but I'm just not really a refined person, so I think I just didn't know. So what's your other stuff? What's, you know, mac and cheese, mashed potatoes?
So if I'm making the turkey, we're doing a 24-hour brine. So I have a 5-gallon bucket in the garage that I use just for brining the turkey, and so I put the turkey in the 5-gallon bucket in water mixed with kosher salt and cinnamon sticks and apples and rosemary, and I can't remember all of it. I have it saved somewhere. And then that goes in the fridge in that bucket and chills for 24 hours.
What does that do? What's the purpose of that? I assume there's a purpose, right?
Yeah. I mean, it flavors the turkey, but also it is the most moist because sometimes you have turkey and you're like, can you pass the gravy? The turkey's a little dry.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So brining fixes that. So the turkey will be nice and moist and flavorful. And yeah, it's the way to go. Some people swear by fried turkeys. I've never done that, but
I feel like I'd blow myself up if I did a fried turkey.
Burn the house down.
Yeah, I would burn the house down, blow myself up, and then, we'd have a terrible turkey, which that would be the real problem. How do you have room for a 5-gallon bucket in your refrigerator, Chad?
You have to raise the shelves up, and it's a little uncomfortable for a day, but you make it work.
Yeah, and this is coming from two people that live in the South. I guess you could totally do that in South Dakota on your back deck. When we were there, we totally could have.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. It's got to be refrigerated in Florida for sure.
Yeah. Same in Memphis. Okay, so is that how you've always done it?
I mean, yeah, as long as I can remember, because I think the first time I ever made the turkey, I was like, all right, I want to make sure that I do this right. And as I was doing the research, I came across the brining method, and I was like, all right, this is how I'm going to do it.
Then you stuff it full of stuffing, and cook it like a normal human being, fully intact.
Yeah.
So you don't like cut the spine out and butterfly it or anything like that.
Is that a thing? I don't know. I've never done that.
If you listen to the radio long enough today on Thanksgiving, you will hear Alton Brown talking about spatchcocking a turkey. So if you just look that up, it is apparently the way that you keep it, like that you cook it the most evenly. I've never done it. I don't cook the turkey. Nobody lets me. Nobody lets me around the turkey cooking. So I've never had the opportunity to brine, spatchcock, or fry a turkey.
Well, I will say we are going to Grandma's this year, and Grandma's not going to be brining, so I might need some gravy for the turkey this year. But Grandma makes good sides and desserts, so that'll be all right.
Okay, so what's your go-to dessert?
Ooh, pumpkin pie as a staple. I know I've heard debates on some people hate pumpkin pie. Some people say you have to have it, but that's like, as long as I have pumpkin pie, it feels like Thanksgiving. Anything else above that is a bonus.
That's fair.
What about what's yours?
So my mother does she always called it fudge pie. And it's a pie that her family has passed down for a while. We've always called it fudge pie. It is actually chocolate chess pie. And I finally figured that out, but it's a recipe that, Mom, if you're listening to this, I'm going to tell your secret here. I'm not going to tell the secret recipe, but my mother's mother gave it to her, and my mom started cooking it. Then my mother's mother, my grandmother, my wonderful, wonderful grandmother, lost the recipe, and my mom won't give it back to her.
Oh man, it's messed up.
Right? I have the recipe, which, oh man, now it makes me, now I'm evil.
Oh,
right?
Grandma's going to come looking for you now.
Oh man. Okay. So maybe my Thanksgiving, maybe the thing I do for Thanksgiving is get that back to my grandmother. Yeah.
Merry Christmas, Grandma.
Yeah. So Mom, if you're listening to this, I'm giving the recipe back to Mama. And I'm from Tennessee, so we call our grandmother Mama.
My family has made chocolate pies in the past, but it's basically Jell-O pudding, chocolate pudding in a graham cracker crust and chilled, and then whipped cream on top.
I get that. That's good. Like that, 10-10 would eat, but this is like just sugar. It's just gooey sugar with cocoa powder. And it's just like, it's really good. It's my jam.
So what day and what time is dinner at your house this year? Because I will be there.
Yeah. So it'll be on Thanksgiving. So yeah, it'll be Thursday.
Do you guys eat late or early? Or we usually eat at
Two-ish,
like 3?
2-ish.
2-ish?
Yeah, something like that. 2, 3, something like that.
I've heard the times all over the map. Some people eat actually for dinner at like 6 o'clock.
Okay.
But I'm of the belief that you should eat early so that you get hungry again and you can have another round at dinner time.
Yeah, it's like voting, right? Early and often. Do it as many times as you can.
I need to get my first nap in before football
Right,
starts.
right. All right. Well, we have bored people to death with our Thanksgiving theories.
If you're still listening,
If you're still listening, I have a conversation with Graydon Trusler that is talking about practical uses of artificial intelligence in your law office. And honestly, I know that that's a thing where people go, "Oh, everybody's trying to talk about practical uses of artificial intelligence." But it really is. Like he's got some really good concepts, and he's got a website out there that is trying to help people really incorporate artificial intelligence into their offices. And he uses a system he calls productive laziness, which is how we got into this conversation in the first place, Chad.
Yeah.
So bringing it all around. So yeah, here is my conversation with Graydon. Happy Turkey Day, everyone.
Happy Turkey Day.
Hi, I'm Graydon, and I am a practical AI specialist with Lexpert AI is my company. And I kind of got into this because I've been working with my wife's law firm. I was actually in the internet marketing space for years and back in the early 2000s. And my wife was starting her law firm. I thought, gee, I can apply a lot of these principles to the law firm and it might be beneficial. And I'm still here. Mm-hmm. So we continue to work together, but it's really my work with AI has just kind of been an extension of that because, I've always been, I don't want to say a nerd. It just fascinates me.
And, you can say I've always been a nerd on this podcast.
Well, and frankly, I don't consider nerd a bad word.
No. So you're in good company.
I wear the badge honorably. I also kind of think that it's like, how can you not be in this world? This is the most fascinating technology that we have seen in our lifetime.
Yeah.
It's going to change everything. And, you can take the dystopian or utopian view. I choose to take the Star Trek view rather than the Terminator view.
Okay.
So, so I think we have a lot of really awesome things coming, but more practically, I that's great, but really most people want to know how to make it either save me time, save me money, do things faster, do things better. How does it make my life better? And so that's what I see. That's what I do here at the firm. But I've always been concerned that I see a lot of attorneys that are just not willing to touch it, whether it's privacy concerns or I don't know what to ask it, that kind of stuff. And so I started Lawyerist AI not really as a business, just more of a place to start putting some of these ideas out there to say, hey, go, here's something that might help you kind of overcome some of those hurdles and do this. Because honestly, it's not a win, it's an if.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, wrong. It's not an if, it's a win. When is AI going to start doing it? And I think things move so much faster now. It's going to be, it's not like the adoption time over internet.
Yeah.
This is so accelerated. It's like you're either going to get on board or you're going to get left behind. And by left behind, in some cases, maybe go out of business. That may be a little extreme. But it's not. I don't know that it is. So.
Yeah, I don't think that is extreme. But let me unpack a little bit here. The problem is that artificial intelligence is something that you kind of have to say everything at the same time. There's just so much going on in this space. And if we start just saying, hey, we're going to have a discussion about AI, people's honestly, their eyes can glass over. And I guess in this scenario, their ears can glass over. And so we want to say, what is our entree? What is our entry point here? And what we're talking about is kind of like practical uses of artificial intelligence in a law firm from somebody that has been doing this and has been doing the automation, but is now kind of like putting it on top of putting AI on top of that. And you've been doing it for a little while. You also have a background in management information systems and business analysis. You've been working at your and your wife's firm in Texas for a significant amount of time. How long have you been doing this in the law space?
At least 20 years, maybe 25. I don't remember exactly. So I kind of waded in, and then the next thing I know, I'm there all the time. So
yeah. Okay, so your wife is the attorney, and you're running kind of the operations and all of that. I hate to say behind the scenes of a firm, but kind of that stuff that clients don't necessarily see.
Agree, which frankly I like.
Yeah,
I'm fine not really interacting with. I don't have a problem with it. I just, all things being equal, I'd rather not. But that's getting where it's becoming less. I don't want to say less an issue, but it's more related to AI too, because AI can interact with clients. I mean, we can go into that too, but that's.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, AI can kind of enter into the law firm in a lot of different places, and it can get pretty complex pretty quickly. It can get pretty scary pretty quickly as well. And Graydon, the way that we have connected is you were part of our lab program and have been part of our business strategists program, and we've talked about your application of artificial intelligence internally in the firm. And let's before we get into kind of the external thing, which you touched upon, the lexpertai.com, which is helping other attorneys do this. Let's talk about it inside the firm that you and your wife run. How did you get, kind of started really trusting AI to do things in your firm, or trusting AI to help you in your firm?
I've always been an early adopter. And so, I don't, and not being a lawyer, I don't look at things like, what are the problems with this necessarily, and this is going to stop me. I look at it more of like, okay, this is an issue. How do I solve this and move past it?
Yeah.
So I basically knew it was something we were going to do, we needed to do, it was going to happen. So it's not what roadblocks do I see, but how do I address all those so I can do this, because it's going to happen. And so the first thing was the privacy issue for us. That was really addressing that and make sure we didn't want to have client data exposed, that kind of stuff, because unless it's working with real data, it's less useful, at least to me. And that's where I've seen the real power is when I do give it all the details about something, even personally. I can go on that just like the more it learns about me and us and our practice and what it does, it's like it will tailor everything with that in mind. So it's really, really helpful.
And so you can't just say, okay, well, I'm going to use these off the shelf public facing platforms, because they just, we know they're not secure enough to put client information in, but you wanted to put at least business information.
Exactly. So, well, and I did do a fair amount of research, and it's easier now, but when I started, I was doing everything through their API.
Yeah.
It's a little more technical, but basically it ensured that my data was not being used to train other models.
Right. And so we weren't going to have somebody trying to write a divorce decree, and then all of a sudden your client's information comes up as their in their example. Exactly.
So we've done that forever, and then as the Claudes and ChatGPTs have matured, there are options to prevent that on all of them. And so and you could do that at the business level or the consumer level as well. It's just one's automatic, one's consumer. And I actually have some information on how to check that, because that's, they're okay to use as long as you make sure you've got all those settings right. But you've got to do that. And so, which is pretty critical. That lowers the barrier to entry. In other words, I don't necessarily need to go sign a contract with LexisNexis just to test this out. but I want to be able to use a tool that's secure and that it's not going to cause a problem.
Right, because not all of our artificial intelligence, not all of the things that we want AI to do, that we dream about AI doing, is legal research or even
Absolutely.
legal document creation, and so we don't need necessarily something that's trained on legal data. We need an LLM that's not going to spy on me and tell everybody my information.
Yeah. In fact, one of the very first things I did was I got a little chat bot and I gave it the Texas Family Code.
Okay.
And I said, base all your answers based off this. Don't base it off the stuff you find on the internet. Base it off the copy of the Texas Family Code.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great. We did all kinds of stuff with that. And that kind of really opened my eyes about what was, what we could do. And all that's just gotten easier and easier now to do.
That's an interesting example because one of the things I was going to ask you in this is what's like a workflow that you were able to do in family law with artificial intelligence, but that's beyond workflows. A chatbot answering questions based on the Texas Family Code, that's something that you really wouldn't even think about. It's too complex to automate with without AI.
Absolutely.
So what then? I guess how do you think of things that you want to do inside your law practice? I think a lot of times we get into this Mino's paradox idea of like, I don't know what I don't know. If I knew what I wanted to do, then I'd already done it. How do you think about approaching some of these things?
So well, first of all, I think we talked about my productive laziness approach, where it's like, how can I get AI to do this for me?
Let's take a step. Yeah, I love this productive laziness. Tell me about that real quick.
I just kind of made that up because in the back of my mind, everything I do, I'm just wired to think, gee, can I get AI to do this for me? And before it was AI, I was like, can I figure out how to get my computer to do this for me so I don't have to do this 1,000 times?
For my dad, it was, can I figure out how to get my kids to do this for me?
Well, yeah. Why else do you have kids?
Right. Well, and then he had a kid that became a lawyer and worked in his practice. So he did a really good job of that.
Good plan. Good thinking. So, but that's the majority of where my ideas come from. Mm-hmm. And so I think from a simple kind of approach, if you're doing that, I would say, look at what's a real pain in the ass. Mm-hmm. What do you hate doing? What takes a lot of time, and focus on and just look for those kind of things, and you could even go so far as to say, at one point I said, okay, I'm not going to answer a question twice. If I get a question more than once, I'm going to go, add that to a chat bot or something where the information is there and somebody else can go look for it.
Yeah. I like that because it's instead of saying, and we like to do this at Lawyerist, instead of saying, how can I get AI to how can I use AI? It's saying, I have a problem. How can I get AI to solve that? As opposed to, what problems would I need to have in order to have AI to solve it? So
exactly. Yeah. It's like, well, and you could even, you can ask, this is an AI question too. You could sit down and say, hey, I'm a family law attorney. This is where I practice. These are the kind of cases I have. And even today, these are the 3 things I really need to get done today. How can you help me? Give me 5 ways you can help me solve this problem today. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I love that. It's hey, AI, how could I use you?
Yeah,
I'm having trouble figuring out how to use artificial intelligence. Hey, artificial intelligence, how can I use you? That's amazing.
I jokingly say it's kind of like asking Einstein to teach you physics.
Okay.
You've got an expert on AI right there that you're working with. So ask it to help you use it.
Ask it to help you use it as your AI expert.
And the other thing I say a lot of times is if you don't know whether AI will do something, ask it.
Yeah.
And it'll tell you. And then you say, if you don't know how to get it to do that, ask it how to do it. If I say, I want to accomplish this, what prompt would I need to give you in order for you to do this for me? And then here's the prompt.
Oh man, that's so meta on.
It really is.
But it's
Yeah.
also, I talked to Sam Harden, one of our strategists here at Affinity and Lawyerist. So I talked to him on the podcast previously, and he was talking about vibe coding and, essentially going in and asking AI how to make a thing, how to build a product. And this is really that same concept that's behind vibe coding of like, hey, tell me how to get you to do this. Tell me how to get the computers to do this thing. I like that. And so instead of saying, what can I use it for? You say, well, okay, here are pain points that I have. I'm doing this multiple times, or this is a pain in the butt, or, I know that this is repetitive. Okay, now I can say, how do I get you to help me solve this problem?
I'll give you kind of a little technical example, but Claude is kind of I use Claude most of the time, and oddly enough, it's just because we just seem to think, it's almost like you build a relationship with it. It's like he gets me.
Yep.
Talking about the way when I say, hey, help me with these things, what I've actually gone a step farther is saying, hey, Claude, this is what I need to do today. By the way, I have ADHD and I typically go off doing other stuff during the day. So help me stay on track. And if I mention something, just make a note of it so we'll forget about it. And and so, every other word out of my mouth these days is, oh, I got an idea. And so I had my 3 projects I was supposed to do that day. And I said, hey, Claude, I got this thing that sounds really great. And he goes, and it literally said, that's great, but you don't need to do any of these other ideas until you finish the things that you've got done, until one of them is producing income. And I shut it off for a second, and I felt scolded. And I thought, wow. But I thought that is exactly what I needed to hear.
That's what I asked it to do. Yeah. That's fantastic, because a lot of times mine, and I don't know if it just knows that I need this or not, mine is always like, oh yeah, Zach, you're brilliant. That's the greatest thing since sliced bread. That is an amazing question for you to have asked me. And so getting it to push back against me sometimes is a little difficult, but I like that of kind of saying, well, here are my, I don't even want to say deficiencies, but here are the
challenges.
Here are my challenges. Here are the ways my brain works. Is how I think of it. I like that, and I like that chat can kind of help you in that. Yeah. Okay, so let's pivot a little bit here, because you've done a lot of these things in your and your wife's law firm in is it Austin, Texas?
Austin, correct.
In Austin. And you've like many people looked up and said, I could probably help other people do these types of things. And so you've started branching out a little bit. Talk to me about what you're doing. I don't know if it's on the side or
we've made an intentional effort to extract me from the firm from day to day, because a lot of the stuff that they wanted me to do, I hated doing anyway, and I sucked at it. So we're just like, let's get him out of that and let him do the stuff he's good at, and so I'm doing it for the firm, but at the same time, everything I do, I'm like, well, gosh, this could be applied to a lot of other firms. And my way to wade into that is basically just kind of putting out content about, hey, here's how to do things better with AI and use it. And so I try to focus on keeping it very direct, very action oriented. Like here's how to do this without, spending a bunch of time. And so that's what Lexpert AI is really just helping educate people and helping them lead them through this process a little bit.
I like this. I like this phrase that you said, or kind of like a pseudo title that you had said, of practical AI specialist, and obviously kind of hanging on that word practical because, you can get into extremely technical stuff when you talk about artificial intelligence. And, if you follow certain people or certain hashtags or what have you on LinkedIn or Twitter, or I guess it's X now, so shows how much I've used it. But if you follow along with some of these very advanced ideas, you can get really in the weeds. You can get, and now you're thinking, do I need to set up my own internal server and model and all that. And it's like, all I wanted to do was have an automatic response to the email that comes to me that says, what is my case doing? So talking about some practical.
I think, and that's kind of what I was really trying to do with Lexpert, as like kind of overcome some of that just technical minutia and say, hey, here's what you really need to know. Here's the problem that you're facing, or what you may be concerned about as a lawyer. Here's the real scoop on a reasonable way to address this issue. You know, a lot of these risks, it's like using the internet at all. There's no way to eliminate every risk. That's just not
Right.
That's not possible.
I mean, that's just walking around in life, right?
And so it's, take reasonable steps to do that, know, and get set up, and then just start, trying to knock some of these things off. I'm trying to think of a couple of things we did. One of the things, and this borders on technical, but I'll keep it pretty high level.
Okay.
I started making custom chatbots for each case.
Okay.
In the firm.
Yeah.
So I've got a chatbot with a RAG database, which is nothing but a knowledge base. It's like a collection of files that it references, and so I'll put all the files from that, or the relevant files for that case, in there.
Okay.
And then what we do is, and this was just kind of an experiment one night, the prompt, we don't just say, hey, you're a helpful assistant. We say, you are an AI or an AI case assistant or AI paralegal. You're part of the Trusler legal team. These are the attorneys that you're going to be helping. These are the paralegals that will be helping. This is the opposing party. This is our client. This is who the judge is. These are the facts of the case. This is what we're trying to accomplish. I mean, a full-blown, case overview.
Yeah.
And your job is to help us advance our client's case, and make sure we're not doing something stupid, and help just basically play the function of an AI paralegal. And it totally changed the kind of responses we got from it, to the point that I've created a monster, and now Christy wants one for every case. So and it's from drafting witness questions to opening and closing statements to analyzing documents or reviewing discovery. I mean, we do all kinds of things with it.
Yes. So this is one of those interesting places that I think people, in my mind, don't discuss enough yet. This feels like someplace where you're not, quote unquote, saving time using artificial intelligence. You're doing something fundamentally different than what you would have done. And hopefully, and I assume it has to be, otherwise you wouldn't do it, better.
No question.
And
ultimately it's better and a lot faster, just in terms of like, hey, produce a timeline for this case. Boom, it's done, you know, and it's good and often better than we would have done, because it goes into so much detail that we wouldn't have done, And so draft witness question. A quick example, Christy actually had it on her laptop in court, and the judge was getting frustrated about the line of questioning that they were going through. And they had a lot of questions. And so she said, hey, all I want to hear is this questions about this topic.
Yeah.
So she told me, hey, judge is pissed off. Give me the questions, just there to this, boom, and just read it immediately. And she had the whole set of questions done.
So your office was able to use this essentially live in court, accessing a chatbot that was connected directly to the specific case that they were in court for, and was able, yes, that saved time, of course, but it's something that just like you wouldn't have really been able to do at any level like that. Yes, she could have sat down, and I'm sure she would have come up with wonderful questions, but it would have taken a minute.
Yeah.
And maybe we would have frustrated the judge a little bit more. Maybe it would have taken a little bit longer to kind of get back onto that, onto that correct path. That's phenomenal. That's amazing.
And our paralegal, she'll take the paralegal to court with her, our real paralegal, not our AI paralegal. But Rebecca,
I love that you have to specify now.
Yes, you're going to clarify. I call it that. I think it irritates them, but
Yeah.
but I kind of equate them a little bit. But Rebecca, while the opposing party is answering questions, she can sit there and pepper it with questions and find out whether they're, is checking against their deposition and what they actually have said before, and whether there's being a contradiction or that kind of stuff.
So is she, as that paralegal, kind of developing different skills that you wouldn't have necessarily associated with a live human paralegal, 6 years ago?
Yeah, I think so, just because we have different tools and we're able to do things that we would have never been able to do before. I mean, before she was, she had transcript, that she was trying to search on her own. I mean, she'd have it on a laptop.
Right.
She's having to search for it and find that. It's just so much faster and efficient now. And in that situation, the speed, if you're not fast enough, it's not useful.
Right.
So if you can't do it fast enough, it just doesn't make any sense to do it at all.
Right.
So, but for me, Christy was the fastest adopter, because once I started giving her these chatbots, the light bulb went off, and now she'd all. And
just to clarify, Christy's your wife,
my wife, the attorney, correct? Yes. Yeah. Rebecca's has been a paralegal, has been with us for a long time. And when I saw the ice melting a little bit, or the warming up to AI, she started coming to me and saying, "Hey, do you think AI could help with this?" And to me, and that was like magic words to me. I was like, that just means she's starting to think that way, which is and so absolutely, and another little thing I did. We had a hearing that we were preparing for, and opposing counsel supplemented production at 11:30 at night before the hearing, which is just really, because we'd given her a deficiency letter. And Rebecca's like, "Shit, I can't go through all this." I said, "Well, let me see it." So I gave it to Claude and said, "Here's the deficiency letter. Here's the production that they just produced. Go through it and verify that they produced everything they asked for, and give me a report what's not there." And in about 5 minutes, I had that. And I said, "Well, since you have the original deficiency letter, just update it, make a new one with what's missing." And in about 15 minutes, I had a complete deficiency letter. And of course, we had to go through and check it as best we could at 11:30 at night. But wouldn't have been possible at all before.
Right. Yeah. I love those. I love those moments where it wouldn't have been possible. And so the tough part with this, in discussions like this, a lot of times, is to put some sort of return on investment, the ROI on these things. Can you, as best we can, because again, we've been talking about like, oh, well, I just wouldn't have done this. Mm-hmm. Can you find a point, someplace where you can say, this was my return on investment of this specific thing? Like, what is something that you've been able to quantify? About
as specific as we've gotten is really with this discovery piece, because that is such a time-consuming process.
Yeah.
And, I'm doing things in 15, 20, 30 minutes that would have taken 3 or 4 hours, for a paralegal to do.
Yeah.
And so that's just dramatic. And so the more things we can do like that, it's just going to shave off time, everything. And then, then you've got the whole issue of the billable hour, which is, that's a different animal, where you're, people are concerned about, well, now I can only bill for 30 minutes. And well, that's a flat fee issue. So we're working on that next.
Like you
exactly.
I'm sorry, you got to figure out how to do this. So I guess that's kind of segues a little bit into a last kind of line of questioning here, of like, what does the future look like then? What is the future of kind of like bringing artificial intelligence into a law firm in a practical way, as opposed to just like being 100 years in the future? What does the near-term future look like then?
I think our near-term future is, first of all, we're going to try to move to flat fees as quickly as possible, because that's going to really eliminate the issue of trying to reconcile how much, the loss of billable hours. It doesn't mean we're going to start taking advantage of people, but there's ways we can still make money and save the client money and produce a better result faster.
Right.
And that. So that's from a financial standpoint, that's the answer there. But I think our next step is to, I just made this up, kind of augment our paralegals with these tools and really ingrain them in like kind of I don't want to say make them think like me, but make them think in terms of like everything you're doing, like how can I do this better or faster? And that could be as simple as every one of just start your drafts. It produces better drafts than you'll ever get from anything ever. And just start with that, you know? And so.
Yeah. There have been many drafts, and I write a lot for what I do. There have been many drafts where I'm like, oh, that sounds like me, and it sounds better than me.
Yeah.
It does a great job.
It's like, yeah, that's what I meant to say. It just did it faster and more clearly.
And with more M dashes.
Exactly. Which, by the way, I do have a specific in my system problem. Don't use any M dashes.
Oh, man. I used to love an M dash. I used to
they
love
ruined
one.
it for us.
And it kills me.
Hey, I'll tell you let me tell you one other quick thing that you might appreciate. And this, because a lot of times I'm always thinking, I'll see something that's cool. And I think, ooh, I could apply it over here.
Yeah.
And do that. And so I was using Chat GPT Atlas, the new, AI browser. And I'd logged into Form Builder and I'd given it an information sheet from a client. It was a friend of ours. And I was having it fill out the Form Builder to generate estate planning documents for her. And it actually worked, and it was really cool. And so but that wasn't cool. So that was one cool part.
Yeah.
And so that's a whole other thing. But when I was doing that, I noticed that it was the way that it was kind of recognized. It was taking screenshots. That's how they recognize where they are. Let me take a screenshot of where I am and then go do it. And then I thought, well, wait a minute. If it can take screenshots and it knows how to go through this, I wonder if it can make an SOP for me.
Yep, that's where my brain went.
Yep. And so, long story short, I'll send you. I'm gonna document how I do this, and I'll send it to you directly. But basically, I got it in the show notes. I got it to go through and basically create a walkthrough step by step with screenshots in a document, and it's like done. It just can fully create SOPs for me.
And I think the thing I want to make sure that our listeners kind of really make sure they get in this is that this was the browser doing the action in the first place.
Yes.
And then creating an SOP off its own action instead of, there are tools out there where you can go and do the thing and you spend the 30 minutes doing the thing and put an SOP out there. But this is the browser taking the agentic kind of moves and then doing an SOP off that. So it's like double AI there.
Exactly. Yes. More meta.
Yes. Yeah. That is absolutely amazing.
That was really. I actually did one of them, and then I was like, I can't screw around with that because I got to do other stuff. I'm going back to like really nail that. It's like this is big, That's one of those things. Like I hate doing them, and so I don't do them. And so this is like, no, it's just now I'm going to have my good friend Claude do them for me.
Yeah. Well, I will say, and we'll probably get into this in another podcast, or if you just like people listen to me talk in general, artificial intelligence is changing the way that we do SOPs and changing the way in which you can document your stuff. It is fundamentally changed the way I advise people to do their documentation. It's amazing. And that right there is also part of that fundamentally changing the way that we document stuff.
Yeah, it's just like as it all boils down to, gee, can I get AI to do this for me? That's all. That's all. I'm thinking that all the time.
I like that. I like that, and I think that's probably a good place to end here because we're talking about AI, so we could go on forever. But I like the can I get AI to do this for me? That we'll kind of end on that productive laziness idea, and can I get AI to do this for me? I like that.
This is not a promotional thing, but I really do have a lot of content on the site that Claude and I worked on very hard.
I mean, yeah, right? You'd have to.
But it's really good stuff, but it's about how do you use AI better? And there's one of them That is really, it's not technical at all. It's just mindset shift. It's like, talk to it, just pretend it's a person. That's 90% of it there. Pretend you're working with a remote VA and you've only got access to email or text.
Yeah.
And that's you're going to go a long way with that.
I like that. Well, people can find all of that information, and it is a lot of information in a blog, and people can subscribe to it pretty easily at lexpertai.com. And I'm going to spell that one, LEXPERTAI.com. Graydon, I really appreciate you being with me and sharing your knowledge on this, your practical AI specialist knowledge on all this.
Yeah, it's funny. It's kind of the same kind. Whenever we run into each other at the lab con or whatever, it's the same conversations we have there. So
it really is. People got to peek in on us talking about what we're doing right now.
Exactly. Yeah. So so if you want to know what it's like talking to me, this is it, pretty much.
This is it. Well, again, Graydon, I appreciate it, and we'll put all the links that we talked about in the show notes for everybody as well. So thank you.
Great. Thank you.